Hello. It's true that very often an employee needs some protection from voluntary decisions and maybe adverse attitude on the part of the employer. But it's also true that sometimes the employer and other employees have some troubles with some particular employee. And in such a situation, often an employer is in a difficult situation, like what to do with such an employee. We're talking about so-called toxic employees, not those who do not do the job well or those who just probably um are trying to establish some unionized environment. No, we are talking about those who practically spoil the environment and the process by their attitude and behavior, non-professional, aggressive, like um, sometimes to the extent of harassing others and so forth. And in such a situation, certain prudence is advised for an employer to deal, or the human resource of the employer, to deal with the situation. So here are the steps that I usually considered, at least if it ever comes to some sort of arbitration or court hearing, considered to be reasonable. Uh, of course, first, it's a good idea, as always, just to talk. Maybe there is a misunderstanding. So maybe the employee does not understand the expectations or the rules or the policies, or maybe it's just an episode which will not be repeated because of some domestic issues or something. We don't know. Health issues. But it might be that it's not just a misunderstanding, and that the expectations of the employee are mm, not going in line with the expectations of the employer, uh, valid, legitimate expectations of the employer. Uh, Here, an explanation, and preferably documented explanation about the policies, about the rules, about the norms of behavior, particularly in this environment, that this is expected and this is to be observed, and maybe something should be signed by such an employee as well. This information was presented, provided, and explained. Uh, it might be that the person is willing to cooperate, but some behavioral patterns, some cultural differences, it's possible, some approaches on the level of observable behavior, that the person simply doesn't know how to do it. And there might be a room, depending on the position, on the situation, of course, there might be a room for certain training. This is how it is done. This is how you normally communicate with colleagues, with clients, with business partners, with your superiors, with your subordinates, and so forth. What is professional, basically? Again, it's preferable to do it officially, in a sense that it's provable later that this kind of a training actually happened and the person participated, and what was the outcome. Maybe some testing of sorts at the end or in the process, something that could be documented, because when it comes to legal conflict, documents play significant role. Uh, In the meantime and after, if notwithstanding of all the efforts, the situation continues to deteriorate or at least continues to be bad, it's not enough to collect some rumors or complaints verbally. There should be some documented process that, okay, this complaint was received, this investigation was conducted, this and this and this. Paper trail, email exchange, maybe, and so forth. Some notices, some letters of advice. And if the situation continues like that, there should be disciplinary measures, but gradual. It's not that everybody was waiting and waiting and waiting, but suddenly the situation just burst out and the person is fired. No, there should be a notice. There should be some like disciplinary 1, 2, 3, 4 measures, some reproach, all documented. The particular way of doing that is usually it depends on the size of the organization, of course, and of the particular area of business. But this is a continuum from a notice and training to actually letting go. And it should not happen all at once, and it should be documented. Once somebody who is actually responsible for the managing of the situation brought him or herself to the point that, well, we are going to the discipline way and maybe eventually like letting go, then it's important, even more than usual, to observe the legal rules with respect to a notice, with respect to not like punishing per person for his or her own complaints. And it's not impossible that by the time the person also complains and complains, so it should be dealt with gradually and professionally. If the management of the organization of the firm doesn't want to deal with like reinstatement of the person back, and the whole story will repeat itself. So what I'm trying to say here is that acting on emotions in such a situation, it's not a good idea. You cannot fight toxic with toxic, or you should not, at least from the legal point of view. It should be gradual, it should be professional, it should be well documented. That's the point when you deal with so-called toxic employees. But it's important to remember that if you don't deal with them, you're basically supporting toxic environment for the rest of your employees. So you're still open to some sort of complaining later. So it's important to deal, but it should be done in a professional and legally sound way. Thank you, and have a nice day.